Welcome back to Monster Tamer, a 2D Pokemon-like RPG created Phaser 3. Previously, we worked on our monster party scene and we added in logic for handling player input. If you missed the previous videos, there'll be links in the video description to a source code up to this point, as well as a complete source code for this video. There'll also be a link to the previous videos if you'd like to catch up. So let's get started. So now that we have our core logic in place for a monster party scene, we need to start working on a monster details scene. And so typically this scene is where once we select a monster, we'll be able to view more details about them. So in most games, this is where we could see like what attacks they currently have. We could switch those attacks. We could see information just on the monster type, so just a little bit of background, maybe where you caught that monster if you track that data, and much more. And so to go ahead and start doing this, what we need to do is we actually need to go ahead and create our new scene. And so we're going to go ahead and create out our basic functionality, and then we'll review what we'll be building. So if we come back to our code, let's go ahead and jump over to our scene keys as a starting point, and let's go ahead and add in our new key. And so we'll do monster details scene, and we'll go ahead and add that as our value. Then if we can go ahead and come back to our code, let's go into our scenes folder. Let's make a new file, and we're going to call this monster details scene.js. And so we'll export out our class. We'll have class monster details scene, and we're going to extend our new base scene class that we worked on. And so we'll have our constructor, and inside here we're going to go ahead and call super, and we'll go ahead and pass in our key. So for our key, we'll have our scene keys, and we'll pass in monster detail scene. So now let's go ahead and hook this up to our main.js file. So we'll come up here, let's go ahead and add in our new scene. Do our monster detail scene, and we'll import our class. We'll go ahead and save. And real quick, come back to our monster detail scene, our imports. We gotta make sure we have our .js on them. All right, so after we fix our imports, our scene should reload. And so what we're gonna go ahead and do is let's jump over to our preload scene, and then that we can start our new scene right away. So we'll switch from monster party to monster details. All right, and we should see in our browser and our console, we should see our log statements tied to our new scene. All right, so before I start adding any code, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be building. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create this monster detail scene here. And so for this scene, we'll need some basic image game objects, mainly one for the background, which is going to be this whole image here. And then we'll need our image game object for our monster. Besides that, the rest of our scene will be made up of containers and text game objects. And so we'll have like this title text here. We'll have what level our monster is, their current name, and then which attacks they currently have. And for the time being, we're going to keep this scene pretty bare bones just to get it functional, and then later on we'll come back and we can add any other details that we'd like. So what we'll do is we'll come back to our code, and first we need to go ahead and create our create method. So we'll go ahead and add in create, and right away we'll go ahead and call our super method, and so we'll call the create method in our parent class. Then what we need to do is we need to create our main background and title, and then we need to go ahead and add in our actual monster details. So to go ahead and actually add in our monster details, we'll need to grab this from our data manager. And because we only store our monster attack IDs, we'll also need to grab from our data utils the actual name of our attacks. So to go ahead and keep track of these two things, we're going to go ahead and add two properties to our class. So we'll add two private properties. We'll have monster details. And then we're going to have monster attacks. And then real quick, we'll add in our types. And so for our monster details, this is just going to be our monster type that we have. And so for our attacks, this is just going to be our attack definition, and we're going to have an array of them. And then so let's go ahead and add in our init method, and we'll go ahead and initialize these values. So we'll start off by calling our init method in our parent class. And then for our monster details, we're going to go ahead and grab that from our data manager. So if this monster details is going to be equal to our data manager, we'll grab our store, we'll use the get method, and then we're going to go ahead and reference our data manager store keys, and let's grab monsters in party. And so for the time being, we're going to hard code this to our first monster in our party. But ideally, long term, what we should do is when the scene starts, we should pass in which monster we actually selected. But in order to go ahead and just build out our UI and make sure everything's functional, we're just going to hard code this for the time being. So then what we need to do is we'll set our monster attacks to an empty array. And now we need to go through our attack IDs that exist on our monster and grab those attack names. So what we'll do is we'll grab our monster details. We'll grab our attack IDs from our monster, and then for each of those attack IDs, we just need to go ahead and use our data utils. So what we'll do is we'll do const monster attack, going to be equal to our data utils, and we'll get our monster attack based on the ID. And so we'll pass in this scene, and we'll pass in our attack ID. And then what we'll do is we're just going to add a safeguard, and we're just going to make sure our monster attack exists. So if monster attack does not equal undefined, then we're just going to do our monster attacks, and we'll push into our array our new attack. So now that we have our monster that we need to start building our scene, we'll go ahead and create our background, and we'll go ahead and create our title. So for our background, we just need an image game object. So we'll have this.add.image, and we'll position this in our top left corner, and that way it takes up the whole scene. And we're going to go ahead and use our monster party asset keys, and we're going to use that monster details background that we added previously. Let's go ahead and reset our origin back to the top left corner, and that way it takes up the whole scene. And now we need to go ahead and add in our text. So we're going to do this.add, and we'll do text. For this, we're just going to have a little bit of padding, so we'll come over 10 pixels. We'll stay at the top, we'll have 0. For our text, we're going to go ahead and do monster details. And then we need to go ahead and add in our text style. So what we'll do is let's jump back over to our monster party scene. We'll come to the top of our class. Let's go ahead and copy our text object there. We're going to go ahead and paste that over here into our monster details scene. Let's add in our import. And then what we'll do is down here for our monster details, we're just going to go ahead and copy that object. So we'll have our UI text style. And then we're going to go ahead and override some of the properties. And so on this, we're just going to go ahead and bump up our font size. And so that way it's a little bit bigger. And so we're going to go ahead and set font size to 48 pixels. And we'll go ahead and save. Then what we'll do is we'll come back to our scene, and we should see our background image with our title text. So with our background showing up, now we're going to focus on adding in our monster details. They go in this section here. So for our monster details, we'll start off by adding in our monster's current level. So let's add a text game object. And for our text game object, we're going to do 20. For our X value, we'll do 60 for our Y value. That way we're positioning it here on our purple bar. Then we need to go ahead and add in our level. So we're just going to do LV, and we'll grab a reference to our monster details. So we'll have this, monster details, and we'll grab our current level. Then for our font styling, we're going to go ahead and copy our UI text style like we did before, and we'll modify our font size. So let's just go ahead and paste that. And we're going to go ahead and do 40 pixels for this. So what we should see is now our new level text should get added. And now we just need to go ahead and add in our monster's name and our monster's image. So if we go ahead and copy our text game object, what we'll do is we're going to update our X position. We'll go 200 pixels. We'll stay on 60 so we stay on the same line. And then we just need to go ahead and add our monster's name. So we don't need the additional string. And we'll just reference monster details, and we're going to do name. And we'll use the same styling so it's consistent. Now for our image, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this code here. We'll add in our image game object. For our image, we need to grab our monster details asset key. And so we're just going to reference this, our monster details, and then our asset key that's set. And then we need to go ahead and update our origin. So we're going to do 0, 1. And then we're going to go ahead and set scale. Since these images are bigger, let's do set scale. And we're just going to do 0.7. So for positioning, we're going to go ahead and come over 160 pixels and come down 310. And so when we save, we should see our monster appear. All right, so for our UI, the last thing we need to do is actually populate our monster's attacks here. And so what we're going to want to do is we're going to add a safeguard. So we're going to do if. We're going to check to make sure they actually exist. So we're going to have our monster attacks. And as long as the first one does not equal undefined, then we would go ahead and add in this text game object. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this here. We'll go ahead and paste it. And then for our text, we're going to position this at 560. And we're going to go ahead and do 82 pixels. And for our name, we're going to want our monster attacks. We'll grab the first element in our array. And we want to go ahead and grab the name of our attack. Now for the styling on our attacks, we want it to be consistent between all 4 of them. So we're actually going to create an object just for that text style. So we come up to the top of our class. Let's go ahead and copy this. Let's go ahead and paste it. And we'll go ahead and change the name. We'll do monster move text style. And for our color, we're going to go ahead and do black. And we want this to be a little bit larger, so we'll do 40 pixels. So now back down where we're creating our text game object, let's just replace that with our new object. And so now if we go ahead and save, we should see our monster's attack / appear. So now we just need to do this for the next 3 attacks if our monster has them. So we're just going to copy this code. We're going to paste it, and let's update our references. So we'll have our first element in our array. We'll have our second element, our third element. We'll update these as well. And now we just need to update our positioning. So our X will stay the same, but our Y values are going to increment. So we'll go up by 80. So we'll have 162. We'll have 242. And then we'll have 322. And so what should happen is nothing should show up in our scene since our monster only has the 1 attack. But for us to go ahead and test this, what we'll do is let's jump over to our data manager and we'll come into our monster where we have our attack IDs. And I'm just going to add in 1, 1, and 2. So we're going to have a couple duplicates, but that's fine. But what we should see now is when our scene refreshes, we should see slice, ice shard, and then slash. So then, in theory, if we remove 2 of them, we should have 2 attacks. And then likewise, if we have 3, we can make sure our code's actually working. Nice. And so we're just going to go ahead and clean those up, and we'll come back to our monster detail scene. Alright, so with our basic UI structure in place, what we need to do now is we need to add in input handling for our controls, and then that way we can actually go back to our previous scene. So first, go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and add in our update method. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to our monster party scene and just copy some code. And so we'll go to our update method here. Let's go ahead and grab our super update and we'll check if our input is locked. We'll go ahead and paste that. Then what we want to do is we're going to handle if our back key was pressed and if our space key was pressed. So we're just going to copy this. And if we press our back key, we're just going to go ahead and go back to our previous scene. Likewise, if we press our space key, so our OK key, we'll also go back to our previous scene. And so what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to do was space key pressed. And then we'll go back to previous scene. So let's go ahead and copy that method as well. So if we come back to our class, let's copy that. And we'll go ahead and paste it. And so instead of going to our world scene, we know we just need to go back to our monster party scene after we're done doing our monsters information. And so we're just going to hard code this to monsters party scene. Alright, so if we want to go ahead and test, if we come back to our scene, if we press our space key, we should navigate right back to our scene. And if we press our shift key, we also go back to our scene. Alright, so one last thing we're going to do is let's jump over to our monster party scene. We're just now going to connect this scene to our monster detail scene. So what we're going to do is let's go down up to our update method. And currently when we lock our input and we go to our world scene, we're just going to go ahead and change this to go to our monster detail scene. And then in theory, what we should be able to do is if we go back to our preload scene, let's jump back to our monster party scene. And now what should happen is if I hit cancel, we're going to go back to our world scene. Let's refresh. If I have my monster selected and I hit space, we now go to our monster detail scene. And then if we hit one of our keys, we go back. Alright, with that actually brings this video to an end. In our next video, we're going to work on enhancing our monster party scene and our monster detail scene to receive data when we start our scenes. And then that way we can pass our information for like which monster we select to that appropriate scene. So as a reminder, there's a link in the description of the video to the complete source code for this video. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did enjoy the video, please consider liking the video and hit the bell icon to be notified when the next video in the series is released. For more great Phaser 3 content, please see the links on your screen now.